Hello all, welcome you to the new video of Haskell. In this video, we are going to discuss about tuples. In the earlier video, we have discussed about list in the Haskell. There are many common things and differences between the tuples and list in Haskell language. Let's see them. Like tuples are very similar in the case of list in terms of what it is used for. Tuples are also used to represent multiple things as a single entity. Uh, While creating a list, we were using square brackets. While you are creating the tuple, we have to use round bracket. We have to keep one thing in mind that we must use tuple only if we know the exact number of elements, or we want the number of elements should be fixed. There should be no change in the number of elements. Let's try it in a practical way. Let's create a list 1. So this becomes list of 3 elements. Let's create a tuple in the same way, just using round brackets. So it creates a tuple. One major difference, like list 2, if we try to create a list with the different type of a data, one number and one character, then it is not possible. But if we try to create a tuple with different type of a data, let's try 1 and the second is A, which is a character. It works. So tuples can store different type of data in it. These are the in which we can define a tuple and a list. Although we have seen list in detail in the earlier videos, still we are covering some revision so to better understand tuples in a better way. Like we are creating a list 1 with 3 elements, then we are creating a list 2 with the 4 elements, and then we are merging list 3 or we are creating a list 3 which consists list 1 and list 2 as a part of it. In the same way, we can create tuples. The same story is as it is true for tuple. Here we have tuple 1, which contains 3 elements, tuple 2, which have 2 elements, 4 and 5. Then we create a tuple 3, which contains tuple 1 and tuple 2 as a part of it, and it works very fine. Also, it is possible to create a list which contains tuple as a member. Also, it is possible to create a tuple which contains list as its member. But there is a catch. Catch is, if we want to use tuple as a member of a list, then make sure that all the tuples have equal number of elements. Let's see practically what we are talking about. So we have list 1, we have tuple 1, two different entities. Let's create a list L1 which contains one tuple 1, 2, 3. It works fine. Let's create a tuple which contains one list inside it. It works fine. So tuples can contain list and lists can contain tuple, and it works very fine. Now what if you want to have multiple members inside a tuple and inside a list? Let's say we are creating a tuple T1 which needs, we want to create a tuple, so I bet I should use round bracket tuple which contains two lists inside it. First list contains only 3 elements and the second list contains 2 elements. It works fine. So we have a tuple T1 which consists of two lists with different number of elements. Let's check whether it is true for tuple or not, list or not. Let's create list 1. So now we are doing exactly reverse thing. We are creating a list which have two tuples inside it, and we'll try it with first tuple containing 3 numbers and the second tuple containing 2 numbers. Now this is error. It is not possible to create the list which contains tuples with different number of elements or different size. Although we can create a list which contains tuples or of same size. Now in this case we are containing a list called as L1 which contains again two tuples but these two tuples have the equal number of elements. Let's try. Now it works fine. See, earlier we tried to create a list which contained two tuples with different number of elements. It didn't work. Then we tried to create a list 1 with two tuples, but this time both tuples contained same number of elements and it worked fine. So we have to keep this in mind that if we want to create a list with tuples or with the list which contains tuples, then each and every tuple must have equal number of elements. Like list, we can also use comparison operation with the tuples. Let's try one operation. Let's create tuple T1 which contains two elements. Let's create tuple T2 which contains the two elements, very same element, and we'll try to compare tuple T1 with T2. Now the answer is obviously false because both tuples are very same, so T1 is not less than T2. It is going to work very seamlessly as it is for the list. There is one small change. For example, list 1, let's create a list 1 which contains three elements. Let's create list 2 which contains two elements, and we can still compare these two lists. So I've used wrong name, sorry. L1 is less than L2, I must use. So we can still compare these two lists even if they do contain different number of elements, like L1 have three elements and L2 have two elements. Still we can compare L1 with L2. What if we do it with the tuple? Let's create tuple 1 which contains three elements. Let's create tuple T2 which contains two elements, and now let's try to compare tuple T1 with tuple T2, and it's not possible. Again, a limitation on a tuple, that if we want to perform an comparison operation on the tuple, then both tuple must have equal number of elements, otherwise it is not possible to compare tuple. We can get the first and the second element out of a tuple. For example, it's like an index operation that we performed on the list earlier. Let's try these operations. Let's create, or we already have a tuple with us, like T2. Let's say first fs3 and T2, it should give 1. And if we say snd T2, then it will give the second element. Now there is one more zip operation which we haven't seen earlier. Uh, in zip operation, what we can do is we can merge two lists, and this two list will be accepted as tuple. For example, here we have two lists, list 1 and list 2. If we merge this two lists using zip operation, then actually it will consider this two lists as tuple 1 and tuple 2, and it will merge them and will create a final list of them. So let's try. Let's create list 1 which contains 1 comma 2 comma 3, then create list 2 which contains numbers, let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3, and I'll use zip operation to generate a list which contains tuples inside it. So I will say list 1, I want to zip list 1 and list 2. The output is, you can clearly see that it is generating a new list, and it is taking the first element from list 1, the first element of list 2, and putting it as a single tuple, single entity. So this is how you can zip the two lists and create a new list which have tuples as its member. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video and you will try out these operations on tuple. See you in the next video. Thank you.